Greetings, BlazeLeeDragon here, and this is a video that was requested by an individual by the name of Walks with Trees, and essentially he wanted me to do a video that had to do with psychic wizardry. Now, my first response to that would be that psychic skills and wizardry are basically two separate paths. However, psychic skills and things that are considered psychic skills are used in a variety of paths, so it can still be used together. It's just to present them together, I feel, would be unfitting. Just for the simple fact, it would be just like presenting any other two things together, such as drawing and fishing. Or maybe it would be more accurate to say baseball and football, both being sports but slightly different. So regardless, I think I'm going to present this specifically as psychic skills today, for the simple fact that I feel like wizardry could be its own topic in its own video. Now, with psychic skills, what are we talking about when we say psychic? We're talking about the psyche or the mind. So we're talking about things that have to do with the mind. Psychic skills are often referred to as metaphysics, which basically has to do with like spirituality. That is a way of looking at the physical world. Like, you know how physics is kind of like the whole scientific part. Metaphysics has to do with the whole spiritual part. That has to do with the magic and mysticism stuff. That's usually referred to as metaphysics. Now, some people will actually call psychic skills pseudoscience, meaning false science, not science type of a deal. Because essentially, what you have with psychic skills is you have these abilities of your mind that, once again, is used in a variety of different paths of spirituality, and you are taking these, classifying them into different categories for further research, development, study, and scientific evaluation. Now, of course, the scientific community, some people, once again, since they call it a pseudoscience, don't buy into any of the results. Some people will do testing on these so-called psychic abilities and come up with their absolute garbage. They're not real. Others will do it and they will have evidence supporting, saying, oh, this is 100% real. And it's very, very, very debated. Just for the simple fact that if you look at it from a scientific point of view, there's no real control factor. So if you don't have your control and you don't have measurable in order to do it, you're talking about random chance, and then it starts to become an issue with what's considered more accurate. You know, whose test results, who's using the best test results. And since it's not definitive enough, and because the community at large in general, for society, people in the scientific community seem to be, and maybe I'm wrong on this, but from my observations, from what I've heard, seem to be very, wouldn't necessarily say narrow-minded, I would say skeptic. They're very much, most of them are skeptical. So I get that. Now, when we're talking about psychic skills, sometimes you'll hear the term psionic skills. It's along the same lines. When you're talking, once again, with psi, you're talking about things such as anything that has to do with mental focus. So then, in that regard, well, isn't everything in a way a psychic skill? Sure. In many ways, many of the mystical practices out there are psychic skills. You usually have classical classifications, and I've actually got a really cool book that, if I can get past my Star Wars figures, I can pull it out. It's an older book, and it's not necessarily the best book in the world. You're going to have tons of books out there that are going to tell you about how you should develop your psychic abilities. This one I thought was neat, and I like a lot of the drills in there. And this one's called Develop Your Psychic Skills by Enid Huffman. That's definitely a cool read. And like I said, there's tons of books that slap psychic on the cover, and they tell you to read it, and they give you different drills and things like this. The neat thing about this, and the reason I wanted to pull this out, is right here on the cover you see all this writing, and it goes over some of the things that are falling under the classification of psychic skills. And that's why I think it's neat, and that's why I wanted to pull it out, because sure, you can try to memorize all these, but that's the thing. I don't practice all of them. I have not even attempted to practice all of them. So I want something to refer to, so I'm just not pulling stuff out of my rear. Let's talk about some of the ones I'm familiar with, and even some of the ones that I've experimented with, and then a couple of the other ones that at least I've heard of and I'm familiar with. Let's begin with psychokinesis and telekinesis. These are the big ones. These are the two things that everybody that practices psychic skills, and this is, once again, stereotyping in my opinion, most people that do some form of mysticism or psychic skill want to learn how to move objects. So when you're talking about the word psychokinesis, psyche, talking about the mind, kinesis, movement, so you're talking about mental movement. Telekinesis is distance, like telephone. Tele is from a distance, and once again, kinesis, movement, so distance movement. So depending on who you talk to, there'll be arguments on the proper way to use the term. Now, since we're talking about the two types of kinesis here, essentially we're just talking about movement, okay? So you're talking about either mental movement or distance movement, depending on how you want to classify it. I hear most of the time, to me at least, it seems like psychokinesis is talking about a more modern term. They decided to make it more, okay, you're moving it with your mind. But you'll still hear telekinesis. It's a term that most people have heard of because I think and I believe it's been around a lot longer. Now, so how does it work? The idea, and depending on who you speak with, has to do with putting your intent and directing your thoughts, which these waves that you're causing with your mind that are stimulating through your psionic ability that is causing the object to move, be pushed, manipulated, whatever the case may be. The problem is that when you talk about physics versus metaphysics, once again, you're talking about essentially fighting the gravitational pull of the Earth with nothing but your mind. How possible this is debatable. A lot of people say it's not possible. A lot of people say it is possible. Unfortunately, I do get a lot of people that are claiming to have this ability, but there's no proof of it. I've never had a chance to witness it myself. The best that I've seen done, or have done, etc., is things such as moving a candle flame, or a psi wheel, telekinetic enhancing tool. And essentially it's this like piece of foil that sits on this tip of a needle. And then there are smaller, more subtle things that you can do, such as trying to manipulate the outcome of dice. But once again, now you're talking about chance. So how accurate is that? Or even putting pressure on somebody's skin, causing their hand to close, or things like that, very subtle things. Some people consider healing to be a form of psychokinesis because you're doing subtle movements with your mind by directing your energy flow, so they consider that to be psychokinesis as well. So, or spinning water in a bowl, little small subtle things like this. Now, of course, there's debates, well, what if you're breathing on it? Well, it's going to move differently if you're breathing on a candle flame. It's going to flicker. It's not just going to bend to the side, and when you release the image, have it go back up. So, I mean, as far as how real the stuff is, it's going to be based on a case-by-case basis. So that's the big one, I think, for a lot of people. However, once again, I've never witnessed or seen anyone take a pencil and lift it or push it across the table without using illusions and trickery, because I do those too. Or seen anybody actually like push a person over, or whatever the case may be. I've never seen any of this myself. So if it does exist, great, but you're not going to find videos on it because most of the time it's people that are trying to con you, that are just trying to, I know there's some videos on there, online, even on YouTube. I've seen people pushing stuff. There's really old video that has this lady, I think she's Russian or something, and she's like almost rocking back and forth, and she's like moving stuff with her mind. And they question on how realistic that is, and if it's been altered and tampered with, or if there are, magnets under the table. There's a whole bunch of theories and debates, and people get in endless debates about this. But that's the big one. The other really big one is reading. So there's different forms of reading. There's like tongue-tied. There is divinations. There's tons of forms of divinations, and many of these are considered, once again, psychic skills. Some people consider tarot to be psychic skills. I don't. I think that using an oracle device such as runes or tarot is its own classification of divination, or even reading signs and omens, but doing stuff like gazing, crystal gazing, palmistry, and even technically palmistry could be more of a biological thing and less of a psychic skill, but once again, it falls into that classification for most people. Because once again, abilities of the mind, like I said, you're trying to take different energy works and you're trying to classify them into these categories. So, of course, how does that work? Vibrations or sensations that are in the air or from past experiences leave a residual residue, theoretically, and the brain is simply picking up on these. When you have a thought, it's creating these energies, it's creating these vibrations, brainwave machines are picking them up. They can monitor your brainwaves, so some sort of a wave is being created by your mental thoughts. So it makes rational sense to me why psychic skills are valid and usable and workable. It's just I think people tend to sometimes blow them out of proportion, and then other people, because they're blown out of proportion, seem to think that it's not possible, period. So, yeah, that is, like with divination, like I said, reading. There's different forms of psychic reading. Some people consider mediumship, which is a form of necromancy, speaking with spirits type of psychic skill, or sensing or seeing the dead, or, you know, sensing or feeling people's moods, like with empathy, or, you know, just doing reading, sitting down in front of them and doing like a past life regression. These are all different forms of seeing and divination, psychic type of skills. Really? Really? Hi Fang. You gonna knock everything over? So anyway, so let's talk some more about, yeah, hi Fang. So he wants me to pet him while I'm doing my video. Here's my Fang. So let's talk some more about different psychic skills, etc. And let's see, we're just talking about divination. There's also clairaudio. There's clairvoyance. And clairaudio and clairvoyance is essentially hearing. So you're hearing thoughts or spirits, etc., or you're hearing from a distance. Or clairvoyance, you're seeing. So you're seeing things, you're seeing from a distance, you're having visions. Let's see, let's talk about, precognition. That's when you're going to see an event before it happens. And now I'm starting to refer to the book. Let's see, ESP, extrasensorial perception. So talking about a sixth sense, and there's debate that there's more than just six senses, that there's many senses, and we just, once again, try to categorize things. And ESP is essentially having a higher awareness of the world around you beyond your five senses. So it's like a sense, but it's happening all the time, and just you're more aware. There is an awareness drills and stuff like that you can build up with psychic skills, which is essentially what I think that they're doing. Scrying. Let's see, scrying is like I was saying with the crystal gazing and the water gazing. Those are forms of scrying and divination. Meditation. I don't know if I would necessarily consider meditation to be a psychic skill, just for the simple fact that meditation means just putting your mind on a particular thought and focusing on that thought and letting things come to you. So there's many ways to meditate. There's many styles of meditation, and you know, any form of religion does meditation. You know, people meditate on their deity, on their sacred books, etc. Let's see, telepathy. Oh, yeah, sending thoughts. Once again, we're talking about the brainwave. So sending thoughts with another individual. This is called telepathy. I forget what the pathy means part right now because my mind is going to sleep on me because it's really early in the morning. But telepathy, it's basically distant communication, speaking mind to mind. Let's see, psychokinesis was covered. Psychometry. Can't believe I forgot psychometry. That's essentially where you pick up an object and you get the feelings off the object. Like one of the drills that people will do, and I think it's even included in this book, is they will get like their car keys and they will throw them all into a little pot together, and like a little like cooking pot type of deal, not like drug pot. But they will take out someone else's key and they will hold it in their hand, and by sensing the object and reading the object, they are then going to say who the owner is. They'll give a physical description, male and female, height, hair color, whatever images they get off of it. They will mention the car, the make, model, whatever, as many physical detailed features as they can. And you see this a lot in movies. People will grab an object from the audience and tell them all about their life. It's psychometry. It's feeling the stuff off the object. Once again, let's see. Yeah, I can't really break down the word for you to give you exact meaning. Look it up. I don't want to BS you. If I don't know it, I don't know it. If I don't remember it, I don't remember it. Past life regression, talked about that. Dowsing. This is essentially where you take two rods or sticks and you can find what's called ley lines, dragon lines, these energy veins that run through the earth. Very similar to the meridians of the human body. Let's see, past life recognition, recalling. I talked about that. Healing. They have this separate here, psychokinesis and healing. Like I said, some people consider them one and the same. Psychic photography. I don't remember that one. I'll have to flip through the book again for that. Let's see. Automatic writing. So this is a form of basically invocation. I know I cover it in other videos too, but there's evoking and invoking. Evoking is to bring something forth in front of you. Invoking is to bring something inside of you, such as a spirit. It's not the only way, but it's essentially a form of possession. Very similar when a medium tries to have a spirit speak through them, and they're talking, and it's the spirit talking through them. That's an entire another category in itself that I could have a long conversation of the validity of that. Not saying it's completely invalid, but once again, you have a lot of con artists that like to do that to make an extra buck. So with automatic writing, you're essentially allowing your hand to be possessed and get a message from beyond. Just another form of necromancy and speaking with the dead. Let's see. Clairvoyance. I think I covered everything that she has on her book. Yeah, I just like this because it's got a lot of really cool drills in it. It's got solo drills, got group drills, kind of breaks it down for you. And like I said, everyone's got different experiences. Everybody has a moment where they can consider it some sort of psychic ability. They talk about moments where they're basically going through and they had experiences where they, everyone seems to have this paranormal event in their life, whether it's talking about an experience with a ghost or where they felt like somebody, friend, family member was in trouble and they ended up actually being in trouble. So, one person shares a ghost story, everybody has one to share. It's kind of like one of those situations, so it's like everybody has had some form of exposure to it at one time or another. But, once again, you're going to get a very diverse and varied opinion on the validity of psychic abilities and psychic skills. So that's kind of my basic overview, talking very briefly about it, talking about some of the categories. I didn't cover everything. There's tons of stuff out there. I'm by no means an expert on it. Some people will call themselves psychic, and they'll say, I'm a psychic, and they're usually referring to one of the forms of reading, divination, or sensing. Other individuals might actually be referring to some of the odd skills that you don't hear about a lot. But essentially, in my opinion, in my view, everybody has psychic skills. It is part of the human brain. It is how we function. It's how we live. We go off of these intuitions and senses and impulses, and you don't have to call it precognition or divination or healing or psychometry. You just your instincts, your senses. Everybody has them. Everybody goes through them. And psychic skills is just a way of, once again, classifying, categorizing, studying, and training. So it's their way of trying to bring about an understanding of things that are considered the unknown. So hopefully, Walks with Trees, this answers your question. My name is BlazeLeeDragon. I take video requests, and I will do the best to give you my opinion. Nothing that I say is necessarily 100% accurate. It is based upon my experiences and my researches. So take it as you will. Please thumb up, like, subscribe, and share my channel.